What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode, the Unstoppable Podcast. I'm your host, Ralph Graves Jr. So glad to have you guys here. I'm here with this is a friend of mine. Sometimes I interview a lot of friends, but this guy and I go back further than me and a lot of people you hear me interview. High school, freshman, eighth grade, I don't know. We go back a long way, and he is doing some wonderful things, and I want to introduce you guys to him. Some of you might already know him because he is a celebrity, and I get the chance to say I know a celebrity. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend John Moyer. What's up, man?
What is up, Ralph? This is, I'm just smiling here. Like, you get on these things and you ready to just, hey, how it's good to be here. How you doing? But dude, I am legitimately smiling on the inside to be able to be here and talk to you and see you. Cause it's been so long, but just following each other on social media. And I have just loved watching all the, the stuff that you do, but now to kind of be in each other's space right now, it's awesome.
But you know what? Even though we haven't talked, I always thought we still remained close. Like, we rock the same style. We're both bald headed. Even down to the clothes we wear. I remember one time you were wearing a jacket and I hit you up like, man, where'd you get that jacket? We rock the same styles. We have, we both have beautiful wives, beautiful children. So, but I always remained close to you. Like, I never felt like there was a moment where we would talk and one would have forgotten the other, man. We just,
you're right. It's like, there's some people that, no matter how long it's been since you've seen them, it's like, there was never any time, but between us. And dude, I just remember, high school and hanging out and
how many classes were we in together, man?
Dude, there's so much I don't even remember that I've blocked out from high school, though I still have, dude, I will have weird dreams that I wake up or in my dream.
Yeah.
I find out that I didn't go to some class in high school and I have to like make something up or do all this old homework when it's like my age.
Yeah.
But I think we had, did we have Mrs. Mall?
We did. Yeah. That's what we got to talk about her. I know people are like, these guys are just on a phone call. No. He is an actor. He's a comedian. He's a professional hypnotist. He's a philanthropist. He's an activist. We're going to get into all of that. But right now I'm talking to my friend, so don't just bear with me. But Miss Mall's class, man, we had a good time, man.
Yeah, dude, that was the one class that eluded me, because I was never a math guy.
Me neither.
I hated math. And the funny thing is when I went to college, because I took the ACTs to get into college.
Right.
And I did so bad on the math portion of the ACTs, I was required to take like a high school level algebra class to graduate. And of course I was getting a degree in theater and film. Right. So I'm like, nobody's ever going to look at my transcripts after college. So my whole philosophy was anything above a D- wasn't worth the effort. And I flew through that algebra class in college with a D-. So it worked out.
She was good to us. And she was. Because I remember she said, guys, just do the homework and you'll get a C. Now, some people may say, well, that's not right. No, it was right because she understood her two students struggled.
Yeah.
But we tried. We showed up. So, man, let's talk about your career, man. I want folks to know, man, kind of like your journey. And after high school, you going to college. What college did you go to? And you said you took in theater and
film. Graduated with a degree in theater and film.
Where'd you graduate from?
I actually graduated from Brigham Young University.
Okay.
So, because I was raised, in the Mormon church. I wound up living, in Utah. I'm not practicing anymore, but love the people, love the culture. But graduated from BYU. That was my thing when I started fooling around with my father's Super 8mm movie camera when I was like 12 years old. So that was my passion. So I go to film school, graduate with a degree in theater and film. But while I was in film school, I discovered stand-up comedy because there was a comedy club in Provo, Utah, of all places. And it was all kind of the same thing. It was like all entertainment based. And, I always had, a passion for comedy to be funny. So my scripts that I wrote were funny. I was doing stand-up comedy. And when I graduated from college, I went on the road professionally doing stand-up comedy. And then also had a few independent comedy screenplays, produced along the way. And that was the bulk of my life for about, 25 years.
But comedy was easy for you, man, because I remember, man, you kept it light in school. You weren't a class clown, but you kept it light. You made everybody around you smile. Everybody. I don't remember anybody, who didn't like you.
I'm sure there were a few people,
but you weren't a clown, man. You weren't a clown. You were a rock solid, cool dude who had a great personality. So when I heard you were doing comedy, I'm like, well, that's not far-fetched. You've been doing that since we were kids.
Yeah. That's, you just take what I was doing in high school and just, being, hanging out with friends and then figuring out a way to just put it into a word structure on stage that you can do over and over again and make people laugh.
So tell me about your first night on stage, open mic. Was it an open mic night? What was it?
What happened? And there's actually two kind of interesting stories there. Okay. So we were really fortunate where the comedy club where I started, because they were open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. And of course, this is before the internet and social media and anybody knew what was going on anywhere else. So everybody they knew the little things that were happening in town, and that's where they went to. So on Thursday nights, they did the open mic night. But what they did, because normally now open mic nights, they'll do it like on a Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. Right. And then it's like all other comics that people show up, the comics are watching each other. Yeah. They put the open micers up before the headliner. They had a real headliner on Thursday night. So we were going up in front of a real crowd. Yeah. And the first time I went up, I think I did like 3 minutes, but I did well enough that the club manager said, hey, why don't you come back over or on the weekend, and you can do a spot on the weekend, which that was easy enough. But where it got weird for me was I had somebody come up a few months later at an open mic and said, hey, can you do 15 minutes? And I'm like, absolutely, I can. Of course I couldn't, but you always just say you can. Right. And she said, I do a comedy night at this bar up in Salt Lake City. Now I was 20, I must've been 22, 23 at this time, going to BYU. Dude, I'd never been in like a real bar in my entire life. Right. So I show up to this bar and I'm like, oh my gosh, people are drinking here. This is like a den of iniquity, the appearance of evil. Right. And I was so terrified. I remember how scared I was. And I was teetering on the edge of just getting in my car and leaving because I was so terrified, not saying anything, just getting in my car and leaving. Yeah. Of course, I realized that would, toast me, with, the anybody relative to who was booking shows and stuff, but I plowed through it. And I remember like when I told that first joke and it got laughs from like the drunk guys, just hanging out at the bar that looked like the biker dudes. It was all downhill from there.
Yeah. Yeah. You said, oh, this is me. I understand that, listening to the different comedians that I do know, man, that comedy circuit is rough. It takes so much heart to get up on stage. And so you guys have so much courage to get up on stage and make me laugh.
Yeah, that was, that's the thing is like, I never felt, early on, obviously I would feel, kind of nervous and stuff, but once you got out there and you were doing it and for the greatest portion of my life, that was my passion. That was my drive. That was my art, being in front of a group of people and being able to take something that was this intangible concept, in my mind, an emotion, that I had that I thought was interesting or funny or whatever. And then packaging that in a way where you could present it to the audience and then they receive it. That connection to me, I love. But the problem that I was having though, is that, a lot of my comedy was all based on my own personal life. Okay. I was making jokes about, at the time, my wife and then my ex-wife and then my kids. Yeah. And when you go to film school, they teach you that all drama is conflict when you're writing a script. Yeah. Okay. So it's like in Home Alone, there's not going to be any movie if the kid's not left home alone and there's not left any burglars, right? You got to have conflict. Sure. So my whole thing was the more conflict that is in my life, the more drama that's in my life, I could take that and make jokes out of that. Yeah. So I was able to stand on stage and be funny and joke about my dysfunction, but personally, I was in a really dark place. Wow. I was in a hole. So that was kind of an interesting dichotomy for me.
Well, what did you do to get out of that hole, man? How did you get out of it? Comedy is important to us as a society. Big ups to all the comedians. Sad is the soul that cannot laugh. But I've heard it said a lot about a lot of comedians, man. We're laughing. Kevin Hart had that, you laugh at my pain.
Yeah. And that, dude, it's so true. Some of the most, or some of my friends that are really funny, great comedians, just some of the most dysfunctional drama and anger, in their personal life. And now see what happened for me was, I'd gone through a divorce. I was a single parent. I had 2 young kids, and, at the time dating all the wrong women. And I was just really, really unhappy personally. And I got to a point where I knew that something needed to change, in my life. But here I was I was in my mid 40s. This was my life for the last 20 years. What's happening? How's any of this going to change? Yeah. And it changed when I discovered, meditation and hypnosis.
Right.
And I was able to utilize that to clean up the trauma in my head and in my heart. Yeah. And I discovered a whole, new resource there that I wound up pursuing professionally, going on from stand-up comedy to comedy stage hypnosis.
And I've watched you meld the two together. And that was my next question. I wanted to find out, how did you get into hypnosis? We just answered the question, but I've seen you work, and you do something that I don't know if others do it or not. Like you said, you bring a comedy to it, but a seriousness to it as well.
Yeah.
And I've seen you kind of free up some people, man.
Yeah, it's been, when I started doing it, because what had happened for me, because I believe, everything shows up for a reason, everything aligns for a reason, God makes everything fall into place exactly the way that it, deserves to be when we're ready. And what had happened for me was I was performing, it was an all-day event where there were all these different activities and happening. And I was booked as a stand-up comedian. I did my show in the venue, probably maybe a half full for my show. Response was okay. But I didn't realize this is after me, they had booked a stage hypnotist. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to stick around and watch this. Right. And, for the venue being half full for me, it was standing room only for this hypnotist. And the audience was enthralled. The show was great. And of course, after the show, the audience was lining up, throwing money hand over fist to buy stop smoking, weight loss, reduce stress, hypnosis programs. Yeah. And I went, man, I've always been fascinated with the mind, and I'm kind of at a point where I deserve to reinvent myself. Yeah. And I'm like, I could do that. I could be up there on stage. I knew how to be funny. I knew how to improv. I just needed to figure out how to hypnotize people. Yeah. But then I went through a whole training course to do that. And when I started doing stage hypnosis, because I went back to all the bookers and the managers at the clubs, the agents, everybody that I had worked with booking stand-up comedy. I said, man, I've got something, a whole new act now, a whole new and dude, it just skyrocketed. It just took off. And not only did it take off, I was expanding my audience base, because now I was able to go, and perform at colleges. Because when I was doing stand-up comedy, who wants to hear about a middle-aged guy complaining about being divorced and an ex-wife, right? So I was appealing to colleges. I was appealing to high school audiences, but I started doing really high-end corporate events, and wound up being booked as a headlining entertainer for Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. So now I'm flying around the world, go to these great locations performing my show. Yeah. And in the process of all that happening, that's when, I was using these techniques to assist myself and benefit myself. And when I kind of came into peace in my heart, my mind, and my spirit, I was like, I don't feel like I have anything, to joke about on stage from the perspective of stand-up anymore. And I retired from stand-up. I guess it was in 2016 or 2017.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask you this. So you get into hypnosis, you're Mormon, I'm born again Christian.
Yeah.
How did that go over with the Mormon brothers and sisters?
Well, that's a really funny or a good question. And what's interesting is because Mormon audiences in Utah they're probably some of the best, most receptive, most responsive, fun audiences ever. Now, what's interesting is the Mormon Church has an official church handbook that they give out to all of their ecclesiastical leaders, their bishops. And in it says, you're not supposed to do hypnosis for like a show or public demonstrations. Yeah. So I've never, like at BYU where I went to school, man, there's no way they would ever do a hypnosis show. But 15 minutes north of BYU at Utah Valley University, it's essentially the same demographic.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not a church sanctioned school. I go in there. I've done a ton of shows there, and they're always, you know, responded to very well. And I think the reason why is that, you know, they have that in the Mormon Church Handbook. A lot of it just comes from people, you know, not understanding.
Right. A lot of misconceptions about it.
A lot of misconceptions about it. Yeah. And, you know, because there are some hesitations, there's some fear, you know, you'll have people go, oh, you're going to take over our mind, or you're going to, you know, this is going to happen. It's not going to happen. Yeah. And what was interesting is a few years ago, it was a corporate event they were like a nationwide, they were jewelry sellers. It was these, you know, it was like a Tupperware thing, I guess, but for, you know, for jewelers. Yeah. And they had their annual, you know, convention or meeting in Utah. So I was asked to perform. The woman who asked me to perform was a Utah native. And when I got there, she said, look, we have a lot of women here that are from down south, the deep south, and there's some concerns. There's a little nervousness. So I go, thank you for letting me know that, you know, not a problem. So when I go up and do my pre-talk before I invite people to the stage, I was able to frame everything to resolve those concerns, you know, and I told them, like, look, we're created in God's image. We have this ability to tap into our mind. This is something that, you know, that God has endowed us with and given us to be able to utilize for good. And I think I probably had maybe 12 or 15 chairs set up on the stage. Okay. When I called for volunteers, I had to add like another, you know, 5-7 chairs because there were so many people that from this group that wanted to participate. And afterwards, it was great because you're hearing back from them. We've never seen anything like this before. And this was amazing. You know, the volunteers were like, I feel so good. This is incredible. And then from the audience, from their perspective.
Did you hypnotize them and they bought more jewelry? See, people think that's what that's about. And I'm like, that's not how that happens. You know?
Yeah, no, I wasn't hypnotizing them for that, but you know, I'd give them a little boost for themselves to be able to go out and sell some more product.
Yeah. So what does one of your shows look like? What does it look like?
So what happens is when I get up there, I'll probably spend, you know, 5 or 7 minutes doing what I call, you know, it's a pre-talk where basically you're letting people know what to expect. You explain what hypnosis is, let them know how it works, kind of make them feel comfortable. And of course, it's a big rapport building with me because they want to feel comfortable, you know, coming up, you know, with me on stage. Yeah. And then, you know, I let them know what it's going to be like and what they can expect. And, you know, as I close that out before I invite, you know, volunteers, I let people know is like, look, if you have a goal that you want to achieve, if there's something in your life that if you have a negative belief, a negative pattern of behavior that you want to eliminate, if you want to install a new pattern of behavior, new belief for yourself that's going to help you achieve your goals, when you come up here tonight, we're going to allow that to be the case. We're going to help you to be able to do that. And that's a huge motivation factor for people to come up on stage. Yeah. So then, you know, they come up on stage and I spend probably 5 to 7 minutes doing a hypnotic induction. Got to move kind of fast for that. You got a lot of people on stage and you just kind of go rapid fire. Sure. And then once they're hypnotized, then I go through a series of skits where you're giving the people on stage different suggestions, which you're, you know, and the audience loves it because when you're hypnotized, your mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not. Right. So it's like when you're watching a movie and if you're really scared or nervous or whatever, you know, something like a thriller movie, you're feeling all that. You've kind of got that same thing happening within your subconscious mind. So I'm just giving people some temporary suggestions that they were going to respond in very funny ways and out of the ordinary ways that make the audience laugh.
Yeah. Man, that's something else, man. That's something else. I mean, that's been a journey, man. So, you're all going over the country doing this. You've been acting. You kind of shut down stand up, even though I don't think I think that you still do stand up along with it.
Yeah, there's an element of comedy to it all. That's for sure.
You have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, and my YouTube channel grew out of my stage hypnosis show.
What's the YouTube channel? So people
they can just find me at John Moyer Hypnosis. It's all my hypnosis and meditation programs. Okay. And the way that happened, and again, it's one of these things where, man, you know, stuff just shows up at the right time. God makes everything happen at the right time. Yeah. And what was going on is when I got into hypnosis, there came a point where, well, every hypnotist was selling their merchandise after the show, CDs, Stop Smoking Weight Loss.
Right.
But CDs became passé and people stopped having CD players. So now I'm talking to all these hypnotists that are trying to figure out how they can sell their merchandise after a show.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are going, well, it's all digital now. What if we got bulk MP3 drives or thumb drives? And then we put MP3 files on there. We sold them that way. And I said, well, everything is going digital. Maybe what I'll do is I'll put my content on my website. They can buy these MP3 audio downloads from our website. But I thought, what if I put it on YouTube as kind of a form of advertising? People might see me on YouTube. They might want to go to my website and download it.
Right.
But I never realized people would use YouTube as their primary platform. And I put some of my content on there. It just, everything aligned. People found me, and it took off. And so for the last, couple of years, I've been fortunate. I've just focused pretty much 100% on my YouTube channel, and I think it'll be within the next month. I'll hit 250,000 subscribers.
Wow, man, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. So, man, let me ask you a couple personal questions, man. And I write these down because this is the Unstoppable podcast, and people need to know, when you feel overwhelmed or unfocused in all of this, what do you do? What's your go-to? Because a lot of us, man, a lot of people listen to this podcast, they're business owners, they're movers and shakers.
Yeah.
Sometimes we feel overwhelmed or unfocused and we all have to take a beat. What do you do?
What I do, and it all goes back to meditation, has profoundly changed my life in ways that it's incredible what it's done for me. And, of course, self-hypnosis as well. Now, people ask, what's the difference between hypnosis and meditation? They're sister states of mind. You've got the same thing that's happening in your mind and body. Yeah. Meditation might be more of a bit more of a break or, a timeout. Whereas hypnosis, if you're listening to something like a guided hypnosis or guided meditation, some people will call it, you're accessing the subconscious mind, which you're allowed, you can literally delete old programming and install new programming.
Wow.
So the things that make people feel stressed, the things that make people feel overwhelmed, whatever the case may be, it's all learned programming within their mind. They've learned, hey, I'm going through my business, and when this happens, or I see this employee do this, or when this comes up, that's bad news. And I feel stressed. So the subconscious mind is equating a situation with an emotional state. So what you can do is you can actually tap into your subconscious mind. And all of a sudden you can neutralize that connection. You can make new connections. So if a business owner, they said, man, this situation's coming up. And instead of feeling stressed, when it comes up, their subconscious mind can tell them, we're feeling calm. We've got this. In fact, we've got this so much, we can actually perform better now in this moment. So that's what it all comes down to. And that's what's helped me.
Yeah. Now, do you get many athletes or like who's some of your clientele?
Well, most of the thing that's so cool about what I do on YouTube is that, you're putting stuff out there that you're hearing from, the entire world. I'm hearing, I get a lot of comments on the channel. I get a lot of DMs and emails, and man, I'm fortunate that I get to hear from the everyday people who are out there living their lives, working to get by, maybe working to improve upon themselves. And I hear from them how they've received my content, and it's allowed them to get over negative situations, get through bad situations, and feel so much better about themselves.
Yeah.
And, this is, that to me, that's the salt of the earth, right?
Yeah.
That's the everyday person that's out there that makes up the world that we live in. And my whole thing is, you help one person and one person is better off. Well, how many people can that one person influence to help better off? And it's like, as my wife says, putting this out there, we're raising the vibration, of the planet.
Yeah.
So that's what I love hearing from the everyday people.
Shout out to your wife. I like how you gave her credit. Shout out to her.
Oh, she's the one. I owe everything to her because she's shown me the way.
So over the last 5 years, what have you gotten better at saying no to?
I have one of the things, a saying that I learned from my wife is, that doesn't work for me. Right.
Okay.
So if somebody asks you, hey, can you do this or do that? How many times do we go, maybe we're not able to do something, but we say yes because maybe we feel guilty and it's not something that, we want to do. And, my whole thing is, you don't set yourself on fire, helping to try to put somebody else's fire out. Right. So so what I've been able to do, if something comes up that, I think it's going to steal my peace, as it were. I could say, you know what, that doesn't work for me. So if somebody comes, hey man, help me out with this or do this. And it can be from an everyday situation to something big, but you feel comfortable saying, that doesn't work for me, just because I come from a space of authenticity, and then there's times that I go, man, somebody really does. They do deserve some assistance. They do deserve some help. And, that does work for me to be able to see, but they're, like I said, you don't want to set yourself on fire sometimes, putting other people out.
I tell you what, man, just talking to you, man, it's you are clearly doing what you love.
Yeah.
And
you're in the sweet spot.
Yeah. And you're impacting people's lives as you always have down through the years, man. I'm just so proud to know you, man. I got to ask this last question before we're off the air. If you could have a billboard anywhere in the world, where would it be and what would it say?
If I could have a billboard anywhere in the world, that's okay. Anywhere in the world, that's a good question, because then I start to look. I go, where would somebody, where would somebody receive me, right? But if I would say, probably somewhere in Middle America, because I've performed all over the country, and people in the Midwest and Middle America are some of the most open, wonderful, receiving people. But I would say, you are the creator.
Okay.
Let them know that we have the power and the ability to create our lives, to design our lives. We're not victims of anybody else other than ourselves, our own limited beliefs, our own limited thinking, our own victim mentality of us. When you can flip that switch and realize you can go out there and make it all happen and kick butt, that's the best.
Yeah. Hey man, again, where can this audience, the Unstoppable audience, find you? We know on YouTube. Are you anywhere else? Give us anywhere we can find you. Where can we find you?
My website, johnmoyer.com, has got all the portals to, but I'm on Twitter at John Moyer, Instagram at John Moyer, LinkedIn, John Moyer. But the biggest place is YouTube. Look me up, John Moyer.
All things John Moyer. Listen, if you're stuck, why don't you reach out to him? Maybe he can help you get unstuck. Maybe he can enlighten you on some of the things that you can do with meditation and hypnosis. If let him talk to you, let him work this out through you and with you. Man, thank you for being an awesome guest. Thank you for doing an old friend an honor.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. It's just, like I said, I'm just smiling on the inside being here with you, and we're coming back for the reunion in October. So I want to see you there.
Yeah. Don't tell people how many years, but we've been out a little while.
It's our 10-year reunion.
Yeah. 10 years, ladies and gentlemen, 10 years. We've just been out 10 years, but brother, love you. Proud of you, man. Can't wait to see you guys. You've been listening to the Unstoppable Podcast. My name is Ralph Graves Jr. Listen, if you haven't, go to my website, ralph@ralphgravesjr.com. Sign up for the community there. Apply for, we got some great stuff. Buy the book. Just go to the website and find out what's happening, because we all need to be, and we all can be, unstoppable together. I'm Ralph Graves. I'll see you at the top. God bless.